Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Beautiful Anonymous changes each week. It defies genres and expectations. For example, our most recent episode, I talked to a woman who survived a murder attempt by her own son. But just the week before that, we just talked the whole time about Star Trek. We've had other recent episodes about sexting in languages that are not your first language, or what it's like to get weight loss surgery. It's unpredictable, it's real, it's honest, it's raw. Get Beautiful Anonymous wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast, your sanctuary with retreat experts, where we spill the tea on retreat success. Here we dive into crafting transformational guest experiences, talk about how to avoid pitfalls, and unlock marketing secrets. Whether you're a seasoned guru or a budding enthusiast, we've got the inside scoop for you. Join us as we learn how to flourish in this magical world of retreats. Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. It's Shannon, and I am so excited about my guest today on so many levels because I was just recently on her podcast, which I will absolutely share with all of you guys. And then now we actually are going to be in France together next month. I am like, holy shitballs. I'm so excited. Alison, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited you're here. First, why don't you just start off by telling everyone who you are and what you do?
Well, my background is in health and fitness. For over 20 years, I own 2 small brick and mortar studios, and I've worked with thousands of people on their own health and fitness journey. Taught thousands of group fitness classes since I was a college student, which probably people listening can relate to that. And about 8, 9 years ago, I got more into the business space when I started doing retreats in my business. And so now, pretty much the majority of what I do is I help other health and fitness and wellness and service-based entrepreneurs monetize their expertise by combining in-person and online together. And obviously retreats fall into that category.
Yes, I love this so much, obviously. This is definitely one of my passion topics. And what I found super interesting was when I was on your show and we were chatting really before we started recording on a topic that I think we both are super passionate about. And that is what retreats look like. I'm not sure if I have a great way or a fancy way of titling it, but essentially what we are seeing in the marketplace, especially since COVID, are a lot of, I'm sure, amazing people getting into the retreat space, but some of it is looking a little cloudy. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I'll just state kind of the obvious, since I know a lot of retreat people listen to this podcast, is that the travel industry is booming right now. It seems like travel's just at an all-time high, and retreats on that same level are also at an all-time high. It's what I like to call, there's a high sense of solution awareness, right? That people will think that a retreat actually can do for that. But the problem comes in when you get retreats thrown into other people's travel plans, and then it all sort of gets combined in this giant pot together. And so then the problem with that, not that anything's wrong with that, but then the problem becomes when you're trying to attract people for your retreat and they're expecting a vacation. Mm-hmm. And so on one hand, it's good because a lot of people have bought into the idea of a retreat, right? And getting away and doing something for yourself. The problem is differentiating what a retreat actually is versus a getaway, versus a vacation, versus a girls' weekend. There's a big difference.
I love this because one of the things that I really focus on is what is the promise? What is the transformation?
Yes.
What is the outcome for your guest when they are on retreat? And one of the things that I see happening a lot is retreat leaders, most of them new, but not all, are just listing the things like you mentioned, which is really a vacation, or it sounds to be like a vacation because you're saying this many nights at this place, hot tub, whatever. And so you're just listing the things, and then they're wondering why it's not filling.
Yes, totally. Very good point. I also add to that I think people get a little obsessed with listing everything that you're going to get. Like to your point, 5 nights in the resort, private chef, massages, all of that. That's all wonderful, but that does not change who you are fundamentally. You still go home and go back to your normal life the way that it is. Because a lot of those same things we experience when we do a vacation or when we do something with our family or friends or whatever.
Yes, yes. And I've seen a couple of posts of yours lately, which I really resonated with too. And one of the things in one of your posts really talked about the difference between like someone coming to your space versus booking a vacation. Can you
Yes.
expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think let's just talk first about what a vacation really is. Okay, a vacation is when you want to shut the engines down with your work, with business, the things that you're kind of used to doing on a day-to-day basis. And you want to go somewhere different and basically shut it off, right? You might sleep in late, you might stay up later, you might, eat and drink more than normal, not passing judgment, just saying that this is typically what we like to do on vacation. Then what happens at the end of the week as a result is, even though we might feel better, we're tired, right? We almost feel a little depleted because we're doing all the things that we don't normally do. So we get home and then the problem becomes we need a vacation from our vacation, right? So the difference between that and doing a retreat is that, a retreat is a chance to go inward. A retreat is a chance to take a look at something in your life that maybe you want to become more clear about. And I'm not saying every retreat has to be deep inner work. It doesn't have to be like that. You can do business retreats. You can do a retreat with a specific theme or focus. But the point is that you leave a different version of yourself so that when you come home, you see things different. And as a result of that, you operate different. You make different decisions. You have different conversations. And this all contributes to your growth as a person.
Hey, it's Shannon here. I'm just popping in really quickly to ask a big favor. Would you pause the show and go review it for us? Please. Reviews really help us to be able to get more guests and more experts on the show to help you transform your retreats. So if you wouldn't mind pausing and leaving us a review, that would mean everything. And if you're not already subscribed, do that too.
I love this so much. I'm not opposed, and I know you aren't either, to somewhat combining the two as far as you're going to learn and grow, and there's going to be some really fun and cool experiences that you're going to have on a retreat. I think that's absolutely going to,
Totally.
some retreats are just designed that way. I know mine are. Mine are designed to really dig deep into our stressors, find out how we can change those triggers, change the situation, or change our thoughts about them.
Yep.
But we're also going to drink wine, have yummy food, and ride some horses. And so I think it's a matter of being clear, again, on what your promise is and what the transformation is. And then
Totally.
if you are just looking for a party, then quite frankly, state that it's a party camp or whatever
It's
it
like
is.
I always ask people when I talk to them about when somebody reaches out about one of my retreats, I always ask them, what exactly are you looking for? Because I think it's important that we have to be clear about that. And I'm like you, there's absolutely nothing wrong with mixing some fun in. On every single one of my retreats, there's always an excursion. We eat lots of good food. We go out. I want people to learn about the locations where we go. That's strategic on my part because I feel like that's really what makes it a good experience overall. And that's really, to me, what a retreat is it's an experience. It's more than just travel and a vacation. It's a real experience.
Well, and that's the differentiator right there, Allison. And it's, I think, the reason why a lot of these new retreat hosts are struggling is they really are trying to be everything to everyone and have this
Yep.
a travel experience,
Yep.
if you will. I mean, it really is. It's like, oh, we're going to host this 3-day, 4-day, 5-day retreat in Bali, and it's got these things. And once again, you're listing the things and not the transformation and
Yep.
not what's going to happen. And I really love that you are telling us that you screen your guests and you're really wanting to find out what it is they're looking for. I go so far too on mine, even on my website, it's like, this is not for you if.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
list the reasons why my retreat might not be for you. Because the last thing I want, and I'm assuming you're the same, is someone to show up expecting one thing and it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, and I've actually been on retreats where that's been the case, where you go and you're
Mm.
expecting something and then you leave and there might be a few things that you've taken away, but you leave and you're kind of like, I don't want to say dissatisfied, but it's just kind of this feeling of a letdown. And unfortunately, when that happens a lot in the retreat space, it makes it more difficult for people who do a lot of retreats and have built that as part of their business. You kind of have to fight that too. And it's unfortunate, but it's just the way, it's just what's happening.
Gosh, I really hadn't thought of it that way. I mean, so one of my recent episodes, I really talked about how your website, your copy, your posts, everything about you should attract the people that you are seeking,
Yep,
but also repel the people you don't want to work with.
yep,
But I really
agreed.
hadn't thought about the fact that it hurts all of us in the industry
It
when
does.
the promise is not clear and or the promise is not delivered or completely different. What's your suggestion to hosts who are listening to try to avoid that?
Well, for people who are listening who maybe have had that happen to them, or maybe I certainly don't want to freak anybody out when I say that. But again, I think a lot of it is I think your copy, your sales page, your emails, how you communicate about what it is, what the kind of experience that you're creating is important. But what I really think is even more important are the conversations that you have with potential attendees. One of the things that I always teach my clients to do is do personal invitations. Look at your existing audience and people that you know and imagine who would you like to see at this experience? Is there anyone that you have in mind? Because even if they're a no, they may know somebody who could be a yes. And so when you're doing that, the more opportunity you have to talk about the kind of experience that you're doing, then most of the time you can head that off at the pass because people feel like they're heard. People feel like, wow, she really understands what I want. And maybe this trip isn't for me, but maybe there'll be another one that I could do. And that's part of it as well.
Okay, can I just tell you, this is like my very favorite tip. I hope the listeners are really listening to this. It's okay to say that my retreat is probably not a fit for you.
Yep,
It, I mean, and not
100%.
only is it okay, but it should be part of your language if it is not
Yep,
a fit for someone. To
yep,
just try to say, yes, sign up, I'll make it work for you, or you'll love it, or whatever, knowing damn well that the specific, like for instance, as an example, I see
yep.
people in Facebook groups who are like, I really want to go on a retreat, but I don't want yoga. And then all these retreat leaders post their yoga retreat
I
to
know.
them. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
that is the worst thing that you could do is let someone come on your retreat that clearly your retreat is not designed for them. Not
yeah.
only is it difficult for that guest, not only is it difficult for you as a host, it's difficult for the rest of the attendees that are there as well. It becomes a
Yes.
very
It only
uncomfortable.
really takes one person that it's
Hmm.
not a good fit for to really cause a lot of unrest, is I guess is the word I can use. Most of the time, as a season leader, and I know you're like this too, we kind of get used to managing that because a lot at the end of the day, it is just managing people and personalities. And so you kind of have, I think everyone has their own way of doing that, but I think we can avoid that. You bring up a great point. I think we can really avoid that by being crystal clear about the kind of people that we want. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of doing personal invitations and doing reach outs. And, what's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody might say no or they ghost you. You move on to the next person. But I think we have to be proactive. We have to make a decision. What do we want this experience to look like? And we have to be an active player in that.
Yes, yes, yes. It just all ties back to that. If you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one,
Yep,
and being super specific about
100%.
who you want to attract in your space. And really, because I remember Allison when I first started, I can when I first started, I was one of
Yeah,
those people that was trying to attract everybody with a wallet. Just be
yep,
honest.
yep,
I had a gift. I knew I could hold space for people. I knew I could teach people, but I was like, but everybody who can pay, just come on. And oh my gosh, was that not exhausting? So
yes,
exhausting. And I remember at the end of I think my second retreat, I was like, what in the hell am I doing? Like, this is
yep,
not going to work. The model that I've got going on here is not going to work. It was profitable, which is not
yeah,
always the case with your first few retreats, but it wasn't worth it. There's a difference,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so I love this conversation so much because I'm really seeing in the language that's being used and the cries for help that I'm seeing this whole why is no one showing up to this quote unquote retreat that they've curated. And when I look at their retreat, I'm like, it doesn't tell me anything.
yeah. I read sales pages every single day. And I do that not just in the work with my clients, but just because I always, as a retreat leader, want to see what else is out there, right? And I really would encourage anyone listening to do that too, because I think we learn a lot about what the problems are and what's really on people's minds by seeing what's really out there. But one of the things I always look for, I always want to imagine myself there. So I'm a big fan of painting a picture of what you want your experience to look like. But when I have to read to the very bottom of the sales page and I still don't have an idea of what I'm going to leave with, then I check out. And so
Yeah.
my question for people listening is, don't do that with your sales page. Give people a reason to keep reading and get them curious enough to ask questions. The whole reason that we want our sales page to work is so people will reach out to us for more information.
Hey guys, it's Shannon. If you've been dreaming about hosting retreats or taking your existing retreats to the next level, let's make it happen together. Join me August 22nd through 24th for an unforgettable retreat leader mastermind experience. It's going to be located on my ranch in the beautiful Texas Hill Country. Here's what you'll get when you hang out with me and an amazing group of like-minded leaders. Learn my top strategies for marketing, business operations, and selling out your retreats. Connect with other passionate retreat leaders in a high-vibe, supportive circle. Recharge, relax, refresh, and soak up all the inspiration our ranch and our staff have to offer, because you deserve it. This isn't just another workshop. It's a chance to step fully into your role as a heart-centered leader while building a business that thrives. I'll be right there with you, sharing everything I've learned from the years of hosting retreats and running my own venue. Spots are super limited, so grab yours now at profitwithpurposemastermind.com. Let's create retreats that transform lives, starting with yours. That's profitwithpurposemastermind.com. I can't wait to see you there. Yes, I love this so much. So I love that you're talking about personal invitations, and you're talking about having conversations. Can you walk people through what that really looks like for you and your business and how you're filling your retreats that way?
Well, sure. Like I said, with every retreat that I do, I always do personal invitations. That's not the only thing that I do, because I think you need to think about an overall sales strategy to fill your retreats. And that usually means an inbound and an outbound strategy of some kind. And what I do may not work for the next person. But I always start with the personal reach outs, because I still believe, I'm old school. I still have a pen and paper calendar, even though I use my computer, right? I still am of the mind, I still have that old mindset that people want to be personally invited. And there was a day when that's what we did. We would pick up the phone and we would call people, right? And people, I think, want that connection to a real person. So there's definitely some of that. But one of the things that I love to do, because I'm an excellent writer, I really honed my skills on that when I was in school. But I love to do like themes and taking people on a journey, whether it's through an email or a social media sequence, where again, you're telling people what this experience is going to be like, because people look for themselves in our stories. They look for a reason. Most people are going to immediately tell themselves they can't. That's human nature. And so what do they say? I don't have the money. I can't take the time off, or whatever, right? But really underneath all that, I think people have a hard time saying yes to themselves. And so I think it's really important that we, in our marketing campaign, whatever that looks like, is that we paint a picture not only of what our experience is going to be like, but that we try to use stories, we use examples, we talk about what problem is my retreat going to solve? And you make that part of what I call the retreat promise, because people want to know what they're going to walk away with. Like, why should they take 4 or 5 days off and have childcare and take time off from work and basically stop their life to come and spend time with you? Make it worth it for them. Say, look, this is what is going to happen, and this is what you can expect, and this is how your life is going to change. That is really where the magic is.
I hope y'all are listening to this marketing gold, because that is exactly what it is. It's what problem are you solving, and are you communicating that in a storytelling format so that at the end of it, they really know why they should invest in themselves. Not
Yeah.
even with you necessarily, although of course that's
Yes.
part of the overall
Correct.
promise, but it's really investing in themselves, because I agree with you 100%. It's hard for themselves. It's hard to give ourselves permission to take that time, to
It
spend the money
is.
on ourselves, to walk away and do these things.
And I just think that underneath, if we're all really being honest, and I just say this outright because I do the same thing, is that our instinct is to look for a reason why it won't work.
Mm,
It's just human nature. And so, it's not, I'm never opposed to like saying, you know what, this looks like a great experience. I'm going to do it. But this is why we have so many people buy at the last minute. If people said yes right away, this wouldn't even be an issue, but it's human nature to do that. And we have to understand that when we're marketing and when we're selling, is that the basic human condition is to say, no, it doesn't really make sense. And we have to give people all the reasons why they should say yes, right? So it's
yeah.
talking all about what they're going to get. That's the key.
I love it. And I can only imagine, because I agree with you. You said you're a master writer. I would say you're a master communicator. Um, and I say that coming from the perspective of being a guest on your show. I know I mentioned it to you when you interviewed me. Your communication and your setup, preparing me to be a guest, was incredible. And so I can only imagine how that translates on your retreat side as well, as far as preparing someone to be a guest at your retreat.
Yeah. It's really about, we have to understand that the client experience starts with when they first start interacting with us. And I think a lot of business owners, and I see this a lot in the retreat space too, we don't treat somebody like a client until they say yes and they pay. But what if we flip that on its head and we made people feel part of the experience from the very beginning? Can you imagine the kind of goodwill that that would do? And can you imagine the barriers that that would help lower to helping people even consider coming on your retreat, right? Because not
Yeah,
everybody's going to be a fit for your retreat,
right.
and quite frankly, the majority of people probably aren't.
Yep.
But there's also, I also believe that their clients can come from anywhere. They're always right fit people everywhere. And we just have to keep talking about it. And the more we talk about it, the more likely we're going to find those right people.
Yes, yes. I have a saying that I tell people is pretend like everybody you talk to is actually handing you a $5,000 check while you talk to them.
Yep.
Just whether they
Love
sign
that.
up or not is irrelevant. Just pretend like they are handing you a $5,000 check
Yep.
as you are talking to them, right?
Yep.
Because that goodwill, even if it is saying, "I'm sorry, Allison, I don't really think my retreat's a fit for you. However, you should check out my friend Tina. You should
Exactly.
check out my friend whomever, Aaron. You should check out this. I really think that you might really align with that. But if you know of
Yeah,
anybody who you think would be a fit for me, let me know." Blah blah blah.
totally.
And so I
I
love
do
this
that
so
all the
much.
time. I always like say, I have a friend who's doing a retreat on this day. You should check it out.
Yeah.
It's the more of that we do. And I'll just speak to this. This is kind of the pink elephant in the room right now. I still think that there's a little bit of that small mindedness going on in the retreat space where there's a fear of other retreat leaders openly sharing other people's experiences. It's almost like they're afraid if I say yes to your retreat, you won't come to mine.
Yep.
No,
No, I think
which,
that's a big elephant. I think it's
yeah.
absolutely in the retreat space. There's a lot of this coveted. This is mine, my idea, my guest, my everything. And I feel like we limit ourselves with that small-minded mindset.
And it just
Absolutely.
comes from a very low energy place in somebody. And sometimes I have to check myself when I find myself getting a little judgy about it, just speaking candidly. And I just have to remind myself that, that's really not about me. It's really more about them. But I also want to
Mhm.
ask myself, what can I do to help change that? And I think a lot of
Amen.
that is how we're talking about what we're doing. We have
Yes.
to be the change that we want to see in the world. And there's a lot of work that needs to happen in the retreat space, and I'm here for it. But I think we have to be the example of what we want to see too.
I agree. I agree. And man, have I seen a lot happen over the last 15 years in this space. So it's kind of exciting, though. I think, just like you said, there's definitely a lot of really great stuff. If somebody wanted to work with you, Allison, how can you help someone in their business?
One of the things that one of my superpowers I like to say is that I have this unique way of helping you get really clear on what it is that you do. Some people call it the zone of genius. I don't really call it that. I call it that thing that you do. So when you think about it, we all have we all have this ability, and the ability can show up in a number of different ways, but we all have that thing that we do. And so one of the things that I am pretty good at in working with my clients is helping them identify what that is. And what that usually translates into is the best way that they can monetize their expertise in their business. Now, my specialty is what I call the hybrid business model, which is combining in-person and online. I was a brick and mortar studio owner for a lot of years. And in full transparency, I've only been online about 10 years, but I've really found a way to marry the two that have worked incredibly well for me. And my business has exponentially grown as a result. And so one of the things that I always want everybody that comes to talk to me, whether they're a fit or not, is to understand that if you're stuck doing your business one way or two ways, you're not setting yourself up for a profitable future. We have to be flexible and adaptable as business owners. And I do that really well in my work with my clients. So for people out there listening who maybe are considering adding something else, or maybe they're wondering how they can condense some of the things that they're already doing to free them up, maybe to do retreats or to start a podcast or do something else, that is what I can help you do. Because my end goal is always to help give you more freedom, help you make more money so you can help more people. That's what it's all about.
I love it. I'm going to have everything linked in the show notes, Alison, but in case somebody's listening, what would you like them to do? How would you like them to find you?
Well, there are two things I want to offer your audience. One is I have a free pop-up podcast series. It's 4 parts. It's on my website. And basically I call this the retreat ID method. It's the way that I help identify people in the audience before I even open a retreat. And it's free. It's got lots of resources. I've got email templates, everything in there. So I want to offer that to anyone listening for free. You can just go over to my website, www.thealisonk.com. That's Alison with 1 L, AlisonK.com. And if you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, you'll find it right there. But I'll make sure that you have the link so you can share that in the show notes as well. The other thing that I'll just say is anyone listening who just wants to talk about this idea of a hybrid model, if you're thinking about it, then hit me up and I'm happy to do a free 20-minute consultation with you. I'm not a hard sell person. My job is mostly to ask questions and help you see where you are. And I'm happy to do that for any of your listeners.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Alison, and for sharing your amazing, I was going to say zone of genius, but I know you don't like using that, but thank you for sharing your.
Well, it's not that I don't like using it. It's just that so many people use it.
They do.
And I tend to be somebody who says, well, everyone else is doing that. I don't want to do that. So even if it works, right?
Well, thank you for sharing your mastery with us. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. Learn more at www.theretreatranch.com. See you next time.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.